Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're doing well today. I am on reason number 27 why following Jesus is the best decision I ever made, and I'm going to have 30 total. And today's is a little interesting, and I'm not going to do it justice, certainly, but science. Science. And that's the short title, but basically one of the reasons I love following Jesus is because science seems to prove the Bible true over and over and over. So many people think that science proves the Bible not true, but that statement is not true because science is constantly proving the Bible to be true. Things like the universe expanding. Well, if God spoke it into existence and light flew out of his mouth at 186,000 miles per second, of course the universe is expanding. It's so huge, right? And we could talk evolution all day long, and yet there's so little proof of evolution and so much proof that what the Genesis account says is actually what happens. And that is that two animals of the same kind come together and they reproduce after their own kind. That's been happening from the beginning of time and still happening now. And if evolution were the case, we'd have a whole lot more evidence of link fossils, so to speak. Okay? But we don't have link fossils. They don't exist. There's a couple that they found that they've tried to make into link fossils, but they're just not. So I'm not going to have any time to do this justice, nor am I anywhere near even a novice on this, let alone an expert. So, but I can tell you, one time I went to see a creationist science, a man who'd written a couple books on creation. He had challenged every city he'd gone to speak. He'd challenged the local university professors to a debate about evolution versus creation. And the one very interesting thing that was the theme of this happened in Duluth, Minnesota. The theme was that, first of all, this creation scientist sent the evolution professor his book that he was going to be speaking from months ahead of the debate, or weeks ahead anyway, but well ahead of the debate. And so he had all of his material on hand. And yet, over and over and over throughout this debate, as the creation scientist presented things and the evolution scientist, his typical response was, creation isn't a science. Creation isn't a science. Creation isn't a science. And he said it over and over to the point you're like, is this guy even educated? Like, he's not saying anything to prove anything to anybody. And there was just no refuting the evidence that's actually there. And my personal experience of this, the latest, was what I believe 100% to be proof of Noah's flood, which is a biblical account, was the fact that we were climbing Mount Tanari in Bolivia, one of the Andes Mountains, over 16,000 feet high. We were finding fossils with relative ease of seashells. Seashells, okay, at 16,000 feet above sea level. So one may say, well, that's evidence that the mountains expanded up. And, when we start saying this happened millions and billions of years ago, it's kind of that trump card. Like, how are you going to refute that, right? We've got biblical accounts that God created. I believe in a young earth. I know there's Christians that believe in an old earth theory, but I believe in a young earth, that God actually created it in 6 actual days, rested on the 7th actual day, which he gave us actual days. So my belief is he wouldn't tell us it was created in days when it was actually thousands or millions or billions of years. So that's my own. But if that's true, then the earth itself is actually only, somewhere between like 4 to 6,000 years old, maybe 10 at the most. But in written history, there's no evidence of the mountains expanding. I mean, it would take billions of years for us to have 16,000 foot high mountains if they were expanding a foot every, 100 years, right? So, anyhow, that's my latest. We found, I brought home like a dozen or more fossils, picking out the best of the best. I mean, it was unbelievable what you could find up there with relative ease. So, anyhow, for me, this doesn't have to be for you, but for me, one of the great reasons why following Jesus was the best decision I ever made is because so many things in Scripture are proven scientifically over and over and over. I'll end by saying this. Two things. Dead Sea Scrolls still being found, Scripture way, way, way back, just proving more and more what the Scriptures do say. But also, I love The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. It's a book and a movie where he set out to disprove the resurrection of Jesus. And in doing so, he scientifically convinced himself that Jesus did in fact rise from the dead. So I urge you, if you're a doubter, if you're a skeptic, check that out at least. At least do yourself that much. Because if Jesus really is Lord, and you're not willing to at least check out the resource that might prove that to you, then you're missing a tremendous opportunity. So, with that, God bless you. Science. Reason number 27, why following Jesus is the best decision I ever made. I got three more. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.